Welcome to another episode of Healing Horizon. Today we have the incredible honor of hosting Dr. Will Tuttle, the award winning author of the World Peace Diet, Food for Freedom, and the World Peace Way. Dr. Tuttle is not just an author, he's a former Zen monk, a visionary thinker, and a global advocate whose work challenges the way we think about life itself. In his decades of research, writing, and teaching, Dr. Tuttle has shown us that food is far more than fuel. It's a lens through which we can understand our health, culture, freedom, and even our spiritual growth. Today, we'll explore nourishment in its deepest sense, how the choices we make at our tables ripple out into the lives of others, the ecosystems that sustain us, and even our own sense of purpose. So, whether you're a foodie, a health conscious listener, or someone curious about the connection between diet, compassion, and social change, this conversation will give you plenty to chew on, both literally and figuratively. So, let's dive in. First of all, thank you, Dr. Tuttle. Thank you for being here on our show. And it's a pleasure and it's an honor to host you today.
Thank you very much, Pragya. I'm delighted to be able to share with you and everyone who's watching and listening. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's start with this that you've spent decades exploring how our food choices they shape our lives, culture, and even spirituality. So, if you had to distill it into one central message, what would that be? Your perspective of it and your experience over the decade.
Yes. Okay. It just in a nutshell, really, it comes back in many ways to the underlying orientation of our food, whether it comes from plants or animals. So as soon as we're eating animal-based foods, we have to imprison them, we have to impregnate them against their will, we have to steal their babies, and then we eat the flesh or milk or eggs. And with plant-based foods, we don't have to do any of that. We can plant some seeds, we can have trees and vegetables and grains, nuts, seeds, potatoes, sweet potatoes, all these things that are just given by the earth. So if we use a plant-based approach and we do it in harmony with nature, not using pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and genetic engineering, then it's much healthier for the planet, for our society, for our physical health, for our psychological health, and for our spiritual health, because we're not paying someone else to do the work that I would never want to do, to just kill animals all day or impregnate them against their will and so forth. So we're building our physical body with bricks of kindness and love and caring rather than with bricks of violence and terror and fear and despair. And that's unavoidable. If I'm going to be eating animal-sourced foods, these animals, they don't want to be killed. They don't want to be imprisoned. They don't want to have their babies stolen. They don't want to have their milk stolen. They don't want to have anything stolen, but we steal their lives, their purposes, and everything really from them. And it's not necessary. That's the beautiful thing. I've been a vegan now for 45 years. So I'm now 72, and haven't been to a doctor or taken one pill in 45 years for anything. So, and I'm not the only one. We can be much healthier if we don't eat animal-based foods because they concentrate toxins. They concentrate all these residues, drug residues, pesticide residues, plus the misery and fear and violence and pain, all of that stuff. It sets up a whole system where we exploit other human beings, we exploit nature, and we end up being exploited ourselves. So that's it in a nutshell. That's basically it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for, taking us through that route. And I totally agree with you. Okay. And as you mentioned, that avoiding animal based food, it is actually something that you can take a step with. And thank you. Thank you for that. Also, in today's world where health, it concerns a lot of people, basically. There are so many issues like climate issues, social divides are also so pressing. So, in all this chaotic, havoc like situation, do you feel this message is even more urgent that, your eating habits, they need to be in control. And yeah, what is your take on it?
Yeah, that's really true. That's a good question because we see it happening in the world around us. We see more and more polarization, people becoming in some ways more tribal. We like just a few people, and then other people, we fight against them. And this polarization, divisions, and so forth, I think it comes out of a deep fabric in our society that goes back to our most intimate connection, really, with nature and with our society, which is our food. You don't get more intimate with anything than eating, right? If I eat something, it becomes this body, the vehicle that I use. So that's enormously intimate. And to eat an animal or to eat a plant, we should really look very carefully at what we're eating. You would think we'd be very careful to eat whole, healthy foods grown with love. We know that the prana, the energy of food, is really what gives us our energy, right? So, like my wife and I have now a little piece of land, and we have a food forest. So we've planted about 80 fruit and nut trees, and then we have 6 raised beds of vegetables and lots of tomatoes and cucumbers, and we just grow a lot of food here. And so we've been doing that now for about 13 years. So we're really involved with the garden and growing food. And we can see very clearly when you love the plants and love the whole web of life, it loves you back. It gives a lot. Like just yesterday, I harvested about 80 persimmons. We've gotten about almost 300 persimmons from one tree. And the tree doesn't charge you. It's just this tremendous abundance from the earth, from nature, the beauty of these trees and the vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds. It's beautiful. And we lived in an RV, I guess you call it a caravan. We traveled the United States for 17 years. We had no house. We went everywhere in the whole United States, giving lectures and concerts and putting on retreats and workshops and things. And so we've seen everything. We've been around the whole country. We've been also all over the world, over 50 countries, including India, China, Australia, all over Europe, South America, Africa, Asia, everywhere. And you can see it everywhere you go. When there's animal agriculture, it's terribly ugly. It's just the ugliest thing you could ever imagine is seeing cows or pigs or chickens or other animals in these stinking sheds, living in their own manure, miserable, with workers feeding them drugs and then terrifying, hitting them, beating them, killing them. This is the most horrible, ugly thing you can imagine, not only psychologically, but spiritually. So, from a spiritual point of view, when you think of the prana, we know that when we're preparing food, it's the prana of the food preparing person, right? That very often it's the mother is cooking the food. Maybe she's cooking some khichdi or something, and she's putting love into the food. And that is what feeds the family. The food is important, but it's the love, really. And it's the same thing before the food is even prepared. We can grow the food with a sense of kindness and respect and love. And so the whole idea is that there's nothing stopping us from this, right? There's nothing stopping us. Anyone can do it, what we're doing, right? Anyone can start just eating a whole organic plant-based way of eating, start growing a few vegetables, start supporting local farmers. And when we do that, we build a relationship with nature. We build a relationship with the community around us. We can meet with other people. We can maybe have a monthly dinner together where we eat healthy food and talk about the recipes. We can find ways to spread this message and to live this message. And I think if we're going to insist on stealing freedom and happiness and health and family bonding from billions of animals every day, if we consider marine animals, billions of animals, we are killing and destroying their happiness. We're doing the same for ourselves. The ancient spiritual teachings of all the world religions say, whatever you sow, so shall you reap. If we're going to insist on sowing seeds of violence and misery and despair and slavery on other beings and conflict, then we shouldn't be surprised when we find that we're in a situation where we have conflict, where we have pandemics of disease, where we have wars and things happening, and where we are in many ways dominated and exploited the same way we dominate and exploit cows and pigs and chickens, right? Whatever we do to others, it'll happen to us. So the whole idea is to understand the ancient spiritual teachings, especially really from India. There's this idea, as you know, of karma, but the idea is that essentially we can live in a beautiful world, but we have to plant the seeds to be worthy of that world. If we if we're going to continue to plant seeds of harming others, we end up creating hell for them, and we end up in hell ourselves. And so it's very obvious, really. It's very obvious. But the problem is that disease and conflict are very profitable. And so the media and the educational system and the governmental agencies, all these things make money for pharmaceutical industries, for other industries that get rich off of disease and war. And so we don't really hear this message. So I'm very grateful to you for creating a possibility for us to talk about these things, because the door of the prison is wide open. We can just walk out. There's nothing stopping us. Each one of us is an individual, and our whole society, we could all walk out. There's nothing stopping us. We could all get up tomorrow morning and say, okay, that's it. From now on, I'm not going to pay anyone to stab and harm animals. I'm going to get all my nutrition from beautiful plants. And when we do that, we sow seeds of love and joy and freedom for others, and it always boomerangs back on us, and we feel happier and healthier ourselves. So this is really the most important thing, I think, right now. Like you say, there's a sense of urgency about this, but, sooner or later, we're going to have to figure it out. So thank you very much for that excellent question.
Thank you, Dr. Will, for such amazing insights. And I totally agree with a lot of things that you've said. And yeah, I resonate with it. And thank you for such clarifying start. And it reminds us, that food, it isn't just fuel or habit, as I also mentioned in the introduction. It basically is a reflection of who we are. And I totally buy that. And thank you for that. Also, your book, Food for Freedom, it explores the connection between diet and liberation.
Right.
Many of us eat on autopilot sometimes, we grab a snack, eat leftovers, or eat whatever's convenient, whatever is just readily available for us. And we sometimes also eat frozen food, which for me is a big no, because, I feel that it is the most convenient thing that you can get, but it is again the most unhealthy thing that you can get from the supermarket. So how can, becoming conscious of your food choices open up a path to personal and collective freedom, wherein, we are consciously making this decision of choosing the right food for ourselves, taking care of our diet, because, the right food also tastes better and tastier. So it's not just about taste, but yeah, what do you have to say on this?
Wow, that's a lot to say about those choices that we make for food. And of course, like you say, a lot of the choices we make for food are made for us. We don't really make them. We go to the supermarket and they have all these different things, and we have to pick from something there. And a lot of that food is not healthy. But like you say, very often it's convenient. And so if we're in a hurry and we don't have much time, we think, okay, I'll just buy some frozen food of some kind, or some canned thing, or something I can throw in the microwave oven. And so I think it's a whole effort, an effort that to make to bring food back up to a level of respect, where we're not just eating, like you say, as fuel for the body, but it's part of the art of our life. It's an art form. We're creative beings, essentially. We're here on this earth to enjoy the beauty here, to contribute to the beauty and contribute to the celebration of life here. And so food is something that is part of that. And if we just think, oh, I just want to get this out of the way, and so forth. And you got to remember also that those foods that are convenient, there's whole armies of scientists who work to make the flavors of those foods addictive and the textures of those foods addictive, so that we just have to have more of that. And this is a big problem. A lot of people are so used to these foods that have MSG and have other flavor additives and artificial colors, artificial preservatives, artificial flavors. All these chemicals that they put into a lot of these processed foods make it taste like over the top. It's like so delicious in a way. If you have that flavor, that expectation. And so we have to, I think, in some ways decide that we're going to question the food industry and try to be more, not only more mindful, but more healthy. And when we're more mindful, we look beyond just convenience and we look at how does it affect the whole? How does it affect my health, the health of our society? And what we've discovered, my wife Madeline and I, over these years, we've been married for over 30 years and we're both long-term vegans. And it's when we buy foods that are healthy, and that's all that's in the house. We don't have anything in here that's not, organic and whole and plant-based. Then it's just a matter of combining these healthy ingredients in various ways. And it's really quite convenient, actually. We learn how to cook some rice while we're doing something else, and then we have this, and then we eat that, and we make smoothies. We have oats. A lot of these things, it doesn't have to be very time consuming. It can be actually uh, an act of love. And when Madeline creates food for us to eat, she does it as a meditation or as a way of being present. And we have all these foods that we've bought that we really honor and respect because they're organic. And we know that the people who grew them were doing the best they could to build up the soil. A lot of the food comes from our own garden. So it's a whole different way of thinking about food. So I think the main thing is we have this industrialization of the food system. We have the industrialization of the medical system, the pharmaceutical industry system, and all of these things work together. The drugs, we wouldn't need them if we were eating healthy food, but nobody wants to talk about that because that's where the money is. So it's important for us as individuals to take responsibility for the quality of our food and to question the ads on TV and maybe what our neighbors are saying or other people. But we really have to become more self-sufficient and just think for ourselves, meditate. I think meditating is really helpful and feel into the highest vibration. I think a lot of this whole thing is clarified by the idea of vibration. If we're eating low vibrational foods that are processed, have animal misery in them, that are old and so forth, come out of factories, that whole factory energy, and we're bringing in consciousness. It's going to be difficult because our physical vehicle is resonating at a low level. And so we feel more fear, more agitation, more anger, more nervousness, all these things that come from a low vibration. So if we're eating foods that come out of a harmonious environment and we cook them and prepare them that way, then our mind is more relaxed and we feel more at peace with ourselves and with others. And we go to a higher vibrational level. And that helps everyone. It doesn't just help ourselves. It helps everyone around us. It helps the whole world. So that's really, I think, goes back to what we said earlier about the division in our society. When we have everyone eating low vibrational foods, then we start yelling at each other and fighting and blaming and shaming and criticizing and all these things. And once we start eating more high vibrational foods and seeing how we're all interconnected, I think that's the main thing. See that there's one life living through all of us. The more we bless others, the more we are blessed. The more we try to bring love into the world, the more we feel loved ourselves. All these things just work together. And again, this is in many ways contrary to a lot of the way our society operates, but it's in complete harmony with the traditional way of living, where people were in villages growing their own food, cooperating together with each other, taking time to prepare meals that are healthy, understanding prana and energy and bringing that energy into the food and into the relationships. It's ancient wisdom that's been somewhat lost, but I think we're called today to reawaken this ancient wisdom and to question the idea that technology is going to make us healthy, because technology usually separates us from nature and the foods that we eat, or if they're technological foods, they're probably not very healthy. So it's better, I think, to simplify our lives and reconnect with nature.
So true, so true. That actually really, reframes everything for me. And I again resonate with a lot of your points because, we just really connect with ourselves and know ourselves better by this process. And thank you for sharing that. Also, you've discussed how the food system it reflects the domination of the feminine, both women and the nature, because it's always been entitled to women and it has that femininity to it. So, can you share how this dynamic shows up in everyday life, like in the food industry or our daily meals, or what is the actual agenda behind all of this?
Yeah, I think you're right. There is an agenda. And I talk about this quite a bit in both the World Peace Diet and also in the newer book, Food for Freedom, because it's the feminine dimension of our consciousness, whether we're men or women, but the feminine dimension is about receptivity. And then, of course, the sacred feminine especially comes through to love and care for and nurture the little babies and the family and the community. Men also have this capacity. We have the sacred feminine dimension. But the problem, of course, again, with animal agriculture at its core, it's about dominating the sacred feminine. That's really what it is. People don't think of it that way. We think, well, we're killing the animals and we're imprisoning the animals. So we do that. We imprison them, we can kill them, but you couldn't do either one of those without first sexually abusing them, right? That's the key to everything. It's breeding. You got to breed them. So I own you, I own your body. I'm going to impregnate you whenever I want so I can make more money. And so we have that foundation at the core of our society. It's the worst in dairy. Dairy is a rape and kill operation that as soon as the baby's born, the baby is stolen and killed, the milk is stolen, and she's pregnated again while she's lactating, the female cow. It's the most violent, brutal domination of the sacred feminine you could imagine is in dairy operations. And so this whole thing, it's like an underlying, very negative vibration in the whole society of not respecting the feminine dimension of consciousness and just exploiting that part of ourselves that loves and cares for life. And I think this is something that we really need to understand and try to remedy that, try to never buy dairy products, but also try to recreate the more traditional ways of honoring women in our society so they don't have to go into offices and compete with men for money and all these things. Then the children don't have anybody at home that maybe the state is taking care of them or strangers are. We see this in the West, in the United States. Most women, when they have kids, they have to go to work and they can't even take care of their children. So the children are raised in daycare centers by strangers or by the state. And then the state just indoctrinates the children in ways that are not healthy for the children. That's it. I think that all these things go together. So it's coming back into a harmony with the honoring the sacred feminine in our food and in our society.
Love that, love that. So true, so true. Also, it's basically profound, because it just is. And yeah, I'm really curious that do you see healing our relationship with food as inseparable from healing our connection to earth and to one another in certain terms? Because see, this is something which I ponder upon a lot. I am a foodie and I actually am really, really concerned about the type of food that I eat and how is it making me feel. So is that relationship, the healing relationship with food, is it inseparable from, connection to the earth or vice versa?
Right. Oh, absolutely. That's the key thing. Our most intimate connection with the earth is through food. It's how the earth brings forth food. And if we grow huge amounts of grain and feed all that grain to cows and pigs and chickens and then kill them, that's a relationship with the earth based on violence and domination and exploitation and oppression and pollution. And So the whole idea is to do plant agriculture, not the way we do animal agriculture. We do animal agriculture with pesticides and with domination. And then because of that, we do plant agriculture the same way. So we have these huge monocropped fields with genetically engineered crops with pesticides and herbicides and fungicides. We turn it into a killing zone, you know? So the whole idea is to get away from all of that and grow food in smaller scale and with organic methods that don't use pesticides and herbicides and chemicals, bring it back into more local production. And you can grow a lot more food on a piece of land when people do it themselves. And so I think this is really the key to healing our relationship with the earth is healing our relationship with food and revitalizing our taste buds. So instead of thinking that something has to be super salty or have all these artificial flavors in it, to really begin to be sensitive to the delicious flavors of vegetables and grains and nuts and seeds and herbs. You know, they're so delicious. So it's healing our taste buds, healing our agriculture, and that will lead to healing our relationships with each other and with the earth.
So true, so true. Thank you for clearing it out for me. And yeah, that is so, so true. Everything, it just mirrors how we treat life itself, and everything just revolves around that. So it's that. Thank you for that.
Right.
Yeah. Also, many people, they think that diet is, just about personal health. It's sometimes, that if somebody says that I'm dieting, it's either for the weight, it's either for cholesterol, it's for energy. But you talk about how our food choices ripple outward into mental well being, the ecological balance of it, and, even the spiritual health of it. So, could you give a concrete example of, how somebody's life, it turned a whole point, that the simple choice at the grocery store, it affected their bigger picture. And yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Right. Yeah, you're right. That's the key thing, you know, it's because we're not just here on this earth to be physically healthy. We have a purpose, and our purpose is to awaken spiritually and to contribute our unique gifts to our society and to future generations and to celebrate our lives. And so that takes questioning the official narratives in our society that encourage us to be violent and to use others as instruments to get what we want. You know, this whole idea of using others, using nature, using animals, using other people. Instead of using others, we become givers. We try to give and bless others and find our unique way of doing that. So this is, I think, the foundation of the transformation that can happen if we change our food. I think it's important, though, if we change our food away from animal foods to healthy, organic, plant-based foods, that's not enough. We still need to go on a spiritual journey, a spiritual adventure of meditation and to really heal within ourselves, our mind, all of the attitudes in our society. Even if we go vegan, stop paying for animals to be slaughtered, we still have a lot of wrong views, perhaps, and conflicted emotions, and maybe anger at our parents, or who knows what. So it's really important to do the spiritual work, to do the inner work together. Those two things have to go together, the inner work and the outer changing of our food. And that inner work is in some ways the most difficult because it's healing maybe the traumas that we've buried when we were little children or other things. So it's when we quiet the mind because we're eating higher vibrational foods, we can get more quiet. We can realize that what we are is not just this body, which was born and will die. That's a complete terrible lie. If we think I'm just this body that was born and will die, we have to realize that we are the infinite eternal consciousness that was never born and will never die. That's our true nature. And once we begin to get a feeling for that and we understand that in a deeper level, then we naturally look at other human beings and animals as manifestations of the same infinite universal consciousness. And then we have a feeling of love and respect for them because we realize we're all related. So that's important. That's inner work. So eating animal foods makes it harder to do that. Going vegan makes it easier, but we still have to do it. We still have to do that work. And that's something that I think has been neglected is the inner work that we need to do. And when we do it, it's fantastic. We begin to, I think, really start to have a lot of basic joy and gratitude running through every moment of our lives, no matter what happens in the outer world. Anything can happen in the outer world. The outer world, we can't really control it. People can do all kinds of things. They can attack us. They can insult us. I don't know what people are going to do, but what I do have power over is how I respond. I can respond instead of responding by getting angry or sad or depressed or nervous or whatever. I can respond by sending love to them because I understand that they're suffering and we're only on this earth for a few short decades. So while we're here, to do our best to remember who we are, that we're not an object that was born and will die. We are the infinite eternal life that functions through the physical vehicle. And that is the only foundation for authentic freedom, is that understanding that we're spiritual beings, we're not physical beings.
So true. And yeah, I totally get that because, these ideas, they basically are just about, maintaining that balance. And I truly, truly get that. Also, you often speak of a benevolent revolution, right? Shift towards compassion, sustainability, mindfulness, and all of that. So, what does that revolution look like in everyday life for you? How can you define it?
Yeah, well, I talk about the benevolent revolution is really what we're talking about here, changing our food and then also changing our relationship with everyone, with ourselves, with animals, with food. And it's benevolent because it's a complete transformation. It can happen individually for me as an individual, but it also can happen for all of us together as a collective. And it's really the future. If we're going to have a future, it will come about through this benevolent revolution. If we're going to insist on not changing. If we're gonna say, no, I'm not going to change. I'm going to keep eating these foods. The problem is if we do that, that's a system of violence. And our technology now is at the point where it will amplify our violence against animals and against each other and against the earth so that we make so much pollution and war and disease that we may not have a future on this earth for our children. So in daily life, it looks like that. It looks like each individual person doing it in our own unique way to understand food properly, understand our mind and consciousness, understand that we have this beautiful mind, this instrument that we can use to create beautiful music and to do our best to bring forth the beauty that we are through the arts, through writing, through doing what you're doing, having conversations that help people to understand beyond just what they're learning through the media to get to a deeper level. All of this is part of the benevolent revolution. Our conversation right now is the benevolent revolution. This is it right now. And when we leave here, and we go out into the world, each one of us, then we can continue this. Every one of us in our daily life, everything we say and do, what we eat, what we buy, it all ripples out into the infinite web of relations and affects others. And then it bounces right back to us again. Whatever we put out, it always comes back in this life or the next. We have to realize that there's multiple lifetimes here. So if we have to think in big picture, like how does this affect the future lifetimes? Because it's all happening. It's unavoidable. We are called to live a life of kindness, and the sooner the better. That's the benevolent revolution.
So true, so true. And yeah, this is not less than a revolution. It is basically a revolution wherein, everything
Right.
is just at the right place. And all you have to do is know the right resources, know the right ways, and actually utilize whatever is in front of you. So thank you for that perspective, Dr. Will.
You're welcome. And so I think are we kind of getting close to the end of our time, maybe? And I can wrap it up here with a few things.
Yes, yes, yes. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. So it's just World Peace Diet. That's the main website, worldpeacediet.com. And you can find us there and all of our books and CDs, music, Madeline, my wife's, her cooking, our gardening, our lecture schedule. We travel around. all over the United States and worldwide, and lectures and essays that I'm writing, and YouTube videos, and all these different things. So we're happy to stay in touch with people that way, and look forward to working together with everyone to help create the benevolent revolution, which is also perhaps the benevolent evolution. It's an evolution. I think we're evolving to a more conscious state of being on this earth. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your hosting this Pragya. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Will. I'd love to thank you for all the thought provoking insights that you've given to us today. And to our listeners, I deeply, just request you to, visit everything that Dr. Will has shared with us today. And I hope you resonate with it because, resonation, it basically gives you that idea, that sense of connection and that belongingness to the same idea that we're sharing today. Also, if I may say for myself, what I've learned today is that every meal, it is an opportunity to choose compassion over indifference, and
Mm.
awareness over habit, and healing over the harm that we are providing to ourselves. And as Dr. Will, he shared with us, and he pointed out that this is not about perfection, it's about mindfulness, it's about intention, it's about small daily steps that, collectively can spark a benevolent revolution, as he mentioned. So that is so great. And maybe the revolution, it doesn't begin in politics or big institutions, obviously, but it begins at our very own tables. So you just don't know when and how it turns to you. So let this conversation inspire you to pause before your next meal to consider the ripple effects of what you eat and what to, you know, and to see food as a path to freedom, compassion, and connection. But thank you, Dr. Will. Thank you for all your lovely insights. And until next time, may your choices nourish your body, your mind, and the world around you. And this is Pragya Malviya signing off.
Thank you so much, Pragya. I think it's been a delight to speak with you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And as we just heard, every meal can be a choice between being just conditioned and doing what we're told to do, or being a positive agent for a benevolent revolution that is so needed. So thank you very much for caring. Thank you.